broad strokes. A graphic EQ, specifically based on the API 550 or 560, allows you to do a little more specific shaping based on predetermined frequencies. Logic has one of these built in that I like a lot. If I go to Audio Effects, EQ, Vintage EQ Collection, and then I go to the Vintage Graphic EQ, here's what I like about graphic EQs a lot. These frequencies are chosen as important frequencies in the human hearing range, and with the graphic EQ, what you do basically is you turn a band up, you say, I like that or I don't like that, and then you adjust the level accordingly. So it makes a very linear process of deciding what you want to do. In this case, I know that what I'm going to want to emphasize, because it's a kick drum, is a narrow frequency in the low end to give it some punch that sticks through the mix. So I know it's going to be in that 63 or 125 range. But what I'll do is I'll just listen and see if I like what it does, and then I'll just kind of adjust. I'm going to actually turn up the master here so it's louder than speakers to you guys. So if I go, so that adds some sub, but this isn't really a sub kind of song. So I'm not really concerned about that too much. Another thing to note about the bands of a graphic EQ, specifically the 560, is that as you turn the band up, the bandwidth gets narrower and narrower and narrower. So the down here, you're going to have a wider bandwidth, and it gets more and more surgical the more you turn it up, which can be pretty cool if one of these frequencies aligns with what you're trying to do EQ-wise, because it means that you can specifically turn that frequency up. Let's try 63 here. So that's still a little below what I'm looking for, but it does give me a little more weight. So maybe I'll give that a little bit. That's an ugly frequency. That sounds gross. So I'm actually going to de-emphasize that one a little bit. That gives me a little bit of a beater, but it's also not super flattering. Maybe I'll give a little bit of that. That gives me presence. I might want a little bit of that in there, or a little more. I like that 8K actually a lot in there. That really does nothing. So if I take this out, this is before. This is after. So it gives you some weight to that kick in. Let's hear kick out here. So maybe kick out is going to be there more for my presence than for my weight, because I've got the weight in the kick in. So let's throw another graphic on there. Also mentally, I don't know if it's just me, but I love the process of just throwing a band all the way up and then being like yes or no, and then making a decision. You know, it's like it just feels really satisfying. That 8K sounds really nice on both of those. Like obviously you don't want too much of it because it takes away from the fact that it's a kick drum, but like it gives it a really nice presence. Not everything has to be on the graphic EQ one band at a time like this, but I do want EQ on everything. That's just something to get used to because that's just the job. That's a really resonant frequency in this one. I don't like that. I don't like that. Actually, I don't mind the sub on this one as much as on the other one. So now let's listen together. It's almost a little bit too much. Maybe we take a little of that away. Move over to the snare. So I'm gonna stick with my graphic for the percussion. Because, or the drums at least, kick and snare, because I like the way that the graphic works on transient events like this. When it gets to things like hi-hat or then into acoustic guitar and stuff like that, I'll go back towards the channel EQ. But because you've got you've got in kick and snare, you've got things that are making the same tone every single time. It's a repeatable pattern. I like the way that graphics work with that a little more. That's ugly. Ugly. Kinda ugly. Kinda ugly. That's pretty. 8K is our magic frequency for this one. I can really do it. I also know I'm definitely going to want to add some weight to the snare top because I know I've got plenty of like sizzle from the snare bottom. A 250-ish is going to be my weight for my snare top. Sometimes I'll kind of do a little like fake high pass filter here. Also, keep in mind, and I know that I've talked about this before, but I always or almost always want to keep all of my drums in or keep a lot of elements in while I'm EQing, because I know I've said before, it's a trap to get into to EQ everything in solo by itself, because it makes no difference how good you make one individual track sound, because no one else is ever going to hear just that one individual track. What they're going to hear is what the mix sounds like as a whole. So you want your EQing to be complementary to everything else that you're doing, rather than just making one track sound good. So that's the first track that 8K has been kind of ugly. I don't like 8K on that snare bottom. It's like too sizzly. Gross. But that's the other part of this that's really cool, is that you get to be really, really judgmental. Like you get to just like be like, ooh, cool, yuck, yuck, cool, yuck. I don't think this snare bottom doesn't need much. When I'm doing all of this additive EQ is I've only got my drums in and I'm peaking again. So I want to make sure that I'm kind of always paying attention to that, pulling things back down. maintaining that headroom. I'm going to listen to the hat by itself for a sec because I think that there is. So I don't. You guys can hear the foot in that, right? So I don't know if this will work, but we're gonna try to throw an expander on here. An expander. I mean, like, I don't think that it's necessarily gonna be the make or break the mix. But an expander is the opposite of a compressor. So a compressor takes the dynamic range, takes the loud stuff and the quiet stuff, and pushes them close together. An expander does the opposite. It takes the quiet stuff and makes it quieter, and the loud stuff and makes it louder. And so maybe we can get rid of a little bit of this foot in here.
I ain't even know nothing about that. I ain't even know nothing about that. You said the expander. Gotcha, nigga.
That's a little bit better. And then for a hat, I'm going to use more of just the typical graphic EQ, or I'm sorry, the channel EQ. Because really all I want to do is brighten it up a little bit. Right away, I like every instructor you have is going to be a little bit different. I love submixes and sends and buses, and I like my sessions to be like a maze, but an organized maze. So I'm going to make sure that I submix these drums right away. So change all the outputs to bus 1, call this drums. And then add this.
Did you have your vocals already submixed?
What's that?
Did you have the vocals already
Not
submixed?
yet. They will. So now I have my drums right here. And the way that I work, I like my drums sounding good before I do anything else. The drums really are just, I mean, even though the drums don't start in this song until halfway through the song, if the drums are sounding good, the rest of the mix tends to kind of fall in place around them. So first off, I'm gonna throw an EQ on the drum submix and just see if there's anything. There might not be, but see if there's anything I wanna adjust. In this case, there isn't. I like the balance of that. And I'm going to throw a compressor on here. And I'm going to do a relatively clean compressor, like like a PCA. So this is modeling an SSL compressor. And we'll do like maybe 3-to-1. I'm not trying to like quote unquote compress this as much as I'm just trying to glue it together a little bit. So a couple of dB a gain reduction. And then I'm not going to use any makeup gain at all here because I don't want to be pushing against my headroom. The drums are plenty loud, I can mix stuff around them. Basically, I'm just trying to get the peaks and just round off the peaks a little bit and bring them a little bit closer to the rest of the kit. That's what's going to make it sound a little glued. Also, I'm going to mess around with the harmonic distortion, which is like the most overlooked knob on the entire Logic compressor. Whenever someone says that something sounds quote unquote vintage, what they mean is that there's harmonic distortion going on. So it's going to add a little gain, but it's also going to add a little presence to it. I like the soft more than anything else, but let's see what happens. And actually, I'm gonna back off the makeup gain a little bit because I'm adding gain with this distortion. Let's go to bass. So after my drums, I want to get my bass in there. Gentle kind of like boosting a little bit of the fundamental, and then pulling out a little bit in the mids and upper mids. That's kind of me looking forward, knowing that I've got acoustic and electric guitars and vocals. Those are all going to be mid heavy, so I'm just kind of carving some space in the bass for those. Compressor on there, an opto compressor. Optos are my favorite for bass. Usually pretty heavy ratio. Fast attack. The reason I want a fast attack is because I don't want any sort of like plucking noises on the bass. I just kind of want the bass to stick there and just kind of sit there in the mix. It doesn't need to be dynamic. It's just fulfilling a role in a particular frequency range of the mix. So I'll also do a slower release so that the compressor kind of never lets go. So then we'll go to acoustic guitars. These sloppy ass acoustic guitars. I'm going to use this opportunity to show you a different EQ just to show it to you. I don't know that it's exactly what I would use here, but it can totally work. If I go to EQ, Vintage EQ Collection, Vintage Console EQ, now what we're looking at is a replica of a Neve EQ from a Neve console. And all it has is low cut or high pass, a low gain, which is a shelf filter, mid gain, which is a parametric filter, and then high gain, which is a shelf filter. So those are your only options. I love, the longer I do this, I love limitations. Limitations to me make things more interesting. I have a billion plugins where I can do anything I want, and it gets boring after a while. I feel like my mixes sometimes suffer from the fact that I can do anything that I want. Rather, if I'm given limitations, I tend to use my ears more and make better, more informed decisions, rather than being like, well, I can do this, so that's what I'm going to do. On that note, the original EQ from these consoles had a stepped knob, so all you could choose are these frequencies. This recreation allows you to sweep between them, and I hate it. Because if I wanted to do that, I could just use a channel EQ. So I tend to try to just stick to these frequencies and figure out what I like and what I don't using those. So again, boost it and switch frequencies and see what you like. Like, take that. some body, but then I'm gonna put the low cut on. So I'm boosting at 220, but then I'm cutting at 80. And then the other thing that I want to do here is do something different on the other one. I don't want to just, we'll see later on a case for this, but I don't want to just copy and paste my EQs because I want to have there to be frequency differences between the left and the right. My God, those are awful. So just for fun, if I go to my other guitars, I'm going to use a different EQ because this is a secret. Don't tell anybody. It doesn't really matter that much. Like you're just trying to make it sound cool. Like there's no right way to do it. There's no like you have to use this EQ with these settings. That doesn't exist. It just has to sound cool and interesting. 10 different engineers could EQ an acoustic guitar 10 different ways, and they could all be right. Which doesn't mean that there's no wrong. There is a wrong, but there's also a lot of rights. I'm going to use the channel EQ for these because they're less finger picked and more tonal. I tend to give a high shelf to just about everything because it's 2026.
That's a good way to pit that shit, bro.
What's that?
That's a good way to pit it, though.
Everything's bright. Like music is just bright now. Like that's just what it is.
Ain't too much turning down, nothing going on.
Famous sound engineers that cause that to happen?
No, it's you guys. For real. It's the people that 20 years ago started making music on cracked versions of FL and didn't know what they were doing. And I'm not saying this as a judgment, this is actually a compliment. People that didn't know what they were doing but knew what they wanted to hear. And they said, I want this to be like super in your face and bright and aggressive. And so they jacked up the high end, and now that's what music sounds like because a lot of those people 20 years ago that were making music on cracked versions of FL are now producing things that you hear like all over the place. You know, they became producers.
If we play loud, then people will think we're good.
Yeah, there's an element to that. Louder is better. Louder is more better. So this is what a freak I am with submixes. I'm going to take my acoustic guitars, my finger-picked acoustic guitars, and I'm going to submix those. So we're going to call that a guitar.
And then when it's real loud, it got to be clear as a motherfucker.
And so now we're going to add this to
Can't
my
just turn it
arrangement
up without
window.
the-
This is not going as fast as I wanted, but that's okay.
It'll do what it do.
So I want a really nice, gentle compression on this. So I'm going to use an opto compressor. I don't want a lot of compression. I just want it to keep in line a little bit. And I don't want to have a really fast attack because I want the picking of the finger picking to stick through. But I do want a little bit of a slower release. Actually, we'll put it on auto release. Then we'll take our two acoustic strum. We'll submix these. And add Add that to the arrange window. And now these strums, I want a little heavier compression, a little faster attack. Do like a studio FET, which is like an 1176. And again, I just want to take the tops off of these, but a faster attack here. So that's going to bring out more of the body. Tune, which is a bummer, but we're just gonna work with it. Yeah, it's a choice. So electric guitars, there's nothing going on down here.
Logic is cracking
And there's
though.
nothing going on up
I
here.
can see it's cracking though. Use this as an opportunity to demonstrate an effects end here. I want to do like kind of a tape delay on this. So I'm going to send it to a bus. So now here's my aux track right here. We'll call this e-guitar delay. Add that to the arrange window. And then on this delay, I'm going to put a tape delay. But one of the big reasons we like to do things like send things to an aux track rather than put the effects right on the track is that I want to pan this delay away from where the guitar is. It's so important to like be able to be objective and say that thing that I had in my head that I thought would sound really cool doesn't. It's really, really important. Now that I have my acoustic guitar pick and strum, now I want to submix the two of these so that I have an easy way to just mute and unmute them. So I'm going to go bus, this guitars, add that to the range window, and now right down here, there's all my guitars. Nice about this glockenspiel is that we can boost these high percussive things and allows us to turn it way down in the mix because we don't need a lot of the body of this. We just like kind of what it's bringing to the table here are high percussive hits. Yeah.
So the guitar submix is
the acoustic, and so what this should be called actually is A guitars.
Oh, okay.
So this is a submix of the two A guitar submixes.
Oh, okay.
It makes sense to me.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, so vocals. Let's talk about really quick vocals. We're gonna do some very, very, very basic pitch correction here. And I have that outlined on the thing that's on Blackboard. We're not going to use flex time or anything like that yet because we'll get to that in like 2 other classes. But this is where I get to play my naked vocals in front of the whole class. It's my favorite part. Pretty simple to pitch correct here in that if I go to audio effects, pitch correction. This song is in the key of C, so if I say root note C and then scale major scale, now it's gonna just give me these options for pitch correction. You can see the tracking on this as I play it back. So there's some hits on the black keys here that we don't want. We're not hearing those, it's correcting them. These settings down here, response and tolerance. Response is how quickly it's going to correct the note. The lower the response, the more obvious the correction is. And then tolerance is how far away it's going to let me get away from the pitch before it corrects me back. And again, the lower the tolerance, the more noticeable it is. So like if I went 0 response, 0 tolerance, I get T-Pain. And if you want to do that in your mix, that's fine. So if I say tolerance,
sound good to me.
And then the response about 50 milliseconds. It's still noticeable. So let's go even further. What you're kind of looking for is that sweet spot where it's actually doing the correcting, but it's not noticeable as correction. This is a blunt force tool. It's not nearly as elegant as something like flex pitch, but it'll at least get us by for today. And here's the other nice thing, is that because every vocal here is just this like these ahs in the same key, what I can do is just put one of these on each one of them, set to C major, and we should be all set.
Okay.
Super simple. I'm holding Option and dragging to copy these. So now if we play all these together with the pitch correction on. That's close enough.
So this is where I might make it like, in terms of EQ, and I even said, actually I don't think it's on the one that's on your Blackboard, but it's on this one here. High pass, everything but kick and bass. Possible exception of the BGV submix. Also, for the BGV submix, you don't have to EQ every single vocal track, because these vocal tracks are not being treated like a lead vocal. It's a collection of background vocals. They serve as one instrument essentially. So if I submix these vocal tracks, and call these BGV. Now this submix, this is where your EQ goes. I wouldn't worry about EQing every individual track. I think there's diminishing returns on that. I'm going to use a different EQ here again, just to show you some different EQs. So I'm going to go to EQ, Vintage EQ Collection, Vintage Tube EQ. And this is modeling a Pultec EQ. Pultec is an old tube EQ. It's really good for brightening things, making things feel saturated but a little brighter. It also does a really cool bass trick that we're not going to use on this track, but let's just mess around with this for a sec. So I'm just kind of sweetening 8K here. That'll help it cut through the mix a little better. Also, 8K seems to be our like magic frequency in this mix for whatever reason. Every mix has one. And then maybe I'll pull out some mid-range. So I'll pull out some maybe 3 or 4K with this dip right here. Send this to a reverb. Call this BGV verb. Add that to the range window. I hate that function of Logic. I wish it just added it to the range window. I want to make sure that I tell you this so that you don't feel pressured or anything. When you open up a reverb, just go right to the presets. I mean, once you find a preset that's close, you can tweak and stuff like that. But like, there's no one like the best engineers in the world are not building their own reverb sounds from scratch.
Appreciate that game, dog.
they're pulling up reverbs that they know they like. They're going to presets that they know they like, and then they're tweaking from there. But no one's building a reverb from scratch. I want kind of a room sound, I think. So, we've been doing all this work on the middle. What happens when we just start from the beginning? We never did shakers. We'll do them right now. Oh no, we did shakers. Didn't we? No, we didn't. Oh, that
I maybe fix that guitar by just like not pitch correcting, but pitch shifting? It's probably gonna sound bad, but we just gotta bring it down like a couple of cents. It's just gross. Better. So the last thing I did there is I just threw an EQ on the stereo out and I brightened it a little. You don't have to do more. And then I put a limiter on the stereo out and set the output level to -1 decibel. What that'll do is that means that your mix cannot peak. Because what a limiter is, it's a brick wall compressor. It's an infinity to 1 compressor. So no matter how far over the threshold the signal gets, it'll compress it down to 1 decibel over. So if you set the output level to 1 decibel under, it can't peak. Like, it can sound shitty, but it can't peak. Like if I push this too far. Obviously it's over compressed and it sounds really pumpy and everything, and that's and there's no dynamics at all. That's not what we're going for. But if I add, enough gain to basically just make this gain reduction meter just feather a little bit. About a limiter, it's not working for some reason, so I was wrong.
So peaking is when that read.
When the red light goes on. You don't want the red light on.
Before security, right?
Before you turn this in, you want to make sure there are no red lights going on.
All right, then I got another question. So
yep.
So is it essential that we got them little yellow things right there, like drums? Is
the submixes?
Yeah.
Yes, you have to have submixes in your track. They don't have to be in the arrange window like this if you don't want to, but you have to have submixes in your track. At the very least, I said drums and background vocals. So you have to have at least 2. You don't have to do.
I'm gonna have to call you for that.
You don't have to do submixes of submixes like I did there. But that's a pretty decent 1 hour mix right there. I mean, of a pretty simple track. Does that make sense? What I'm looking for? Did you pick up any ideas?
All game, good game.
That's all I can ask for. So you've got